Welcome to video 4. It's been a marathon of videotaping. So this is the rubric that the students peer review of each other's portfolio at a university, SUNY New Paltz, that I worked at for years. I also attended there for 2 different degrees. Want to go through the rubric because it's really nice and clear of all the format and all the different things. So this video, buckle on down. I just want to do the last page of the, if you caught the other videos of this article that was in the NAEA Journal years ago. The final suggestions on the last page talk about both the content and the presentation of the teaching portfolio are extremely important. A portfolio is not a scrapbook, I was just mentioning in the last video, and should not contain anything that an educator should not contain everything, not anything, everything that an educator has done. It's not, here's my life. It is, again, condensed. It's business. Education is a business. You're going in. This is marketing. This is sales. And you need to make sure it's telling the story of you as that art educator. So it's not completely covering everything, and only highest quality lessons, images, and documents. I remember a student of mine being interviewed at a district, and one of the art teachers in the district said, I would never hire someone who can't take pictures of student work. He was an excellent teacher, but the student, in their rushed snapping away, getting pictures, didn't think that the presentation of that skill of photographing and cropping and editing and making sure these pictures were of artistic quality was important. And it was so unfortunate because that teacher was a really great teacher candidate, but because they didn't take the time, they rushed through photographing and putting a portfolio together. They had a difficult time. I don't know if, what happened to them after. They probably did eventually, but got to have the highest quality. All right? It is the best of who you are as a teacher. You never should have any images that are pixelated or blurred or small. Usually old eyes are in the principal's seat. What is that? I can't see. So text has to be large enough for, it's usually 12, or sometimes I even do a little larger so that I can hold something up to somebody a couple feet away. Incomplete documents are are inappropriate as well, all right? So make sure that it's the best, like you're in a big competition, because you are, all right? Portfolio should not contain any cute images. No clip art. No clip art of children painting at easels and how cute rainbows. Not professional, all right? Do not use kid font anywhere in your portfolio. We're not doing cutesy. We're doing competitive edge, you as a researcher, educator, and teacher, all right? So be careful of making it too scrapbooky, colorful, and, professional. Sometimes even just really solid background, black or a dark color, or matching the color, a solid color to something that will bring out a picture. That's why I like working on PowerPoint. Do everything in PowerPoint, do my text boxes, match the color to something in the artwork so it's a piece of artwork, and then print out your PowerPoint. Print it out. So I'm never showing that PowerPoint on a screen or on a computer. I'm using it as a tool because I don't use Mac. So, make sure those text boxes are clear. You're not gluing and taping things in a book. It usually is all printed unless you really have labels that are very professional, but stay away from scrapbooky kind of processy. All right, so no cutesy colors and rainbows, and that's that for the last of that. So let's go to the portfolio rubric. Okay. The first section here is organization. If I had your portfolio in front of me, I would be looking at it from beginning to end, and I would want to know that you sequenced logically. So the sequence of information was important. Your first student teaching placement, your second, your field work, not, something out of whack and organized. Oh, well, that was my favorite. I want to put that up front. No. So it needs to be logical. This person doesn't know who you are interviewing you, and they need to be walked through sequentially. Use of dividers and tabs. Did you use them effectively? Did you use them professionally? Text presented in a professional manner. Text, readable. Don't start doing script, and use a very recognizable font at a good font size, all right? Sections having appropriate length. Ooh, this used to be something that everybody would be filling in. You might have loved one lesson and you went ba, 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 da, ba, ba, and you really did very long, and then you did a short for the second one. Be sensitive to not having something too long or too short. So make sure you have the appropriate length for anything you're presenting. Inclusion of only the best and most appropriate materials. Again, we've talked about that. Use of photos, very important. The quality of the photos, perfect. Even, go in and alter, make it crisp, make it clear. You can alter photos if you want to turn something to black and white, or you want to enhance it, but you're not changing the quality of the artwork. But if you, and I mentioned this one, I used to hate students taking pictures of themselves and the big red exit sign was above them. Crop it out, blur it out. All right, crop, I want to see only the action that you are focusing on. So you don't need the whole classroom. You can have an angle of even the back of you and a group of students engaged. If there's a photo of some student touching and teasing the next person, or inappropriately playing with their face, or sleeping, get rid of it. If that's your only photo of that, then crop that kid out. All right, edge it in. Only show very attentive students and you at your best, all right? The use of photos, how did you lay them out? Way too many on a page? I showed you before, 4 can be acceptable. 3 is great too. Sometimes it's just one photo of a page with, do a text box and do the label in the corner or below, make the photo smaller. The content of the photos. Don't have 4 of you teaching from different angles. One really good one. 1 or 2 of the students engaged, but they need different messages, each one of those. Background 2 photos. All right, so that's what I was just saying about the exit thing. Be careful of the background in your photos. Presentation of personal artwork. Content as conservative and professional. Again, we are more conservative than the rebellious BFA student who is finally away from home and wants to I've been there, okay? So that's not the art that you're presenting. You're presenting your professional conservative for this audience. All right, content exemplary of professional level of expertise. Only your best work. Content demonstrates breadth and expertise. We talked about that before. Content expresses own personal style. We want to see who you are as an artist, right? So make it be your own within your artwork, okay? That's really important. They need to see your interests and your passion with your artwork. Overall appearance. Here's your portfolio. Final product has a polished, professional look. Good craftsmanship. If an art teacher can't have good craftsmanship and there's gluey edges and pencil marks, right there, you are not competing. All right? So make sure the craftsmanship of your book is pristine. All right? And that's where sometimes using a digital program and printing it out, you have full control. Years ago when I started portfolios and we didn't have, it was so expensive to print out things. it was, you know, a lot more gluing and a lot more tabs and a lot more sticky notes, and we're not there anymore. We're not there. So unless you really can't print out, and if you do use labels, it shouldn't be hand lettered unless you are a calligraphy person that can make it look like printed print. All right? Okay. Let's see. Easy to handle. We talked about that, I think, in video 1. Can't have this big... I remember a student coming in with a wheelbarrow. A wheelbarrow. I am not joking. It was this crafty cart with artwork and books and three-dimensional sculptures, and everybody looked like, okay, this was a mistake to call this person in. Thank God we're past that, okay? Better be past that. Which, you know, I just want to say, what if you have video work? Make sure that if you don't have it in a website, make sure that you have something that people can go to your YouTube videos of you in process of your sculptures, so there's a three-dimensional video of your 3D work. If you're a 3D artist, if you're an environmental artist, make sure you have video and links, and maybe a postcard that you've had printed out with those links, or you email them. So remember your video content of your work. Evidence is also included in all this, okay? Contains items of consistent size, all right? So that's, there needs to be a flow. So a lot of little, we already said that's not appropriate. So make sure that there's some kind of consistency with your work. Good quality copies of your evaluations and your certificates. That's important too. Even though it's your state certificate, or you're this or you're that, your fingerprinting, it's all the way in the back or in a separate thing. Good qualities of them. All right. Overall, next section is overall content lesson demonstration. You need to show diversity. Equal representation of non-Western, non-traditional artists and art forms, and contemporary, some art history, you know, all the flavors. Boy, we teach the history of man. So show a little that you're not just in, well, I love contemporary painting, I love abstract. You got to show a little diversity, all right? The next thing is your lessons should demonstrate motivation, allowing the students for their discovery, questions being asked, their inquiry, their investigation, their exploration. It's a nice thing to show in some photographs or in their sketches or in their artwork. Evaluations reflect lesson objectives. The assessment, those rubrics, those checklists, those, you know, interviews, student interview, whatever, need to go right back to the objectives, all right? Objectives build a rubric. The rubrics prove the objectives, all right? So that is part of your portfolio review too, that did you do that? Or did that rubric only cover a little snippet of something, and I feel that, oh, gee, well, what about all this other stuff? So it might be a few different evaluations, but there should be something for every lesson. Lesson reflects authentic content, instruction, and assessment, all right? It's not a lesson about mask making and having students all make African masks, and they're just copying and making. First of all, Africa is a continent. There are many different cultures and people on the whole continent, and African mask, or people on that continent who have a particular mask for a particular reason. Now, what is that reason? And now your students are inspired and motivated and go into their own world and their own meaning making, and that authentic art making comes from them, their take on what was done in that other culture. But copying and making something of somebody else's culture is copying. So how did you use other cultures and other artwork as an inspiration? Even if you do Van Gogh, what inspired your students to take something from that to make it their own and make it meaningful? So that should be in your portfolio, how that you took inspirations and students made their own authentic artwork out of it, okay? No cookie cutter. All right, next thing is, did you love the chimes in the back? Did you count how many, what time it is now? Lessons that follow art education format. Objectives clearly stated, all right? Objectives, overview. First of all, the overview clearly stated. Nobody's going to read big, long paragraphs. 1 or 2 sentences for the overview. This is who they are. This is what they're learning. This is what they did. Objectives have to be measurable. Students learned about and made They learned this. You know, I'm going to make a little recording someday, a song about the art educators. Our building blocks are the principles and elements of design, and that's where our objectives many times need to use what we have standards in and a vocabulary in to write our objectives. The students were able to identify the use of color in blah, blah, blah. The students were able to demonstrate and use line in for You know, so think about how you incorporate in your objectives something of measurability, and then it gets assessed in your assessment at the end. All right? Really big that the principal and people interviewing you, and you should be very in tune. Age appropriate. Really important. You need to show that person interviewing you that you are not going way above a child's level, doing something provocative or, you know, something high school for a 6th grader, over their developmental understanding or skill level, and also making sure that you're not doing something too babyish for the young ones, okay? People will ask me all the time, do you think that this is too babyish for this? Well, it depends on how, you know, you're using it. So you have to make sure that things are age appropriate. Really important. And sometimes student teachers haven't gotten that down yet. They're still that 13-year-old in the scheme of development, and they're not that 18-year-old behind the wheel yet. So, you know, try to really figure out if it's age appropriate as you're developing lessons and as you're building this portfolio. Culturally inclusive, very important. Gender inclusive, really big thing the past couple of years that I never even had to put in any of my coursework about making sure that we're gender sensitive. And that does not mean we don't use girl, boy, blah, 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 but we're not excluding the gray area in between. So, and also making sure that, and I haven't talked about this at all in a while, that when we're talking about family, we're very inclusive. We don't usually make Mother's Day projects and Father's Day projects in the art room because many children don't have the traditional mother, traditional father, so we have to be very inclusive of the definition of family. Remember that. In this day and age, children are learning from us. We're another parent. We are another parent that the child is learning from. We team with the parent, so we have to make sure that we've included that sensitivity. All right? So the format also with these lessons, the assessment is at the end, and the standards are included. Don't have to list, you know, all of, you know, blah, blah, blah. Just you can list the codes for them. The last thing, well, it's next to the last thing, that is in the critique is your format. You should have, in the beginning, your title page with your name, bold and professional. Is it in there? Sometimes it wasn't, and somebody got a comment like, well, I don't know who you are. Table of contents, that's the first page. And you do have your pages either numbered or tabbed in sections. So section 2, section 3, the blue section, whatever how you organize it. Your resume is after the table of contents. Your teaching philosophy is right after that. And again, tabs on sections, your transcripts, your certs and docs are at the end. Your resume, I'm going to do a whole video just on resume. For here it says coherent and logical, clarity, all that. So we'll save that for another time. Teaching philosophy, content reflects appreciation of human diversity, reflects individuality of teacher candidate. You, it needs to say who you are, reflects promise of lifelong learning. Grammar, spelling, punctuation. Oh man, never, ever have something misspelled in your resume, your teaching portfolio, or ever in your portfolio ever. So that's where the second and third set of eyes or a peer critique is important. And it's been a long morning making these, but I think that I will post these on the blog, and I will put the blog address in next to all this information so that you can go and see these documents and peruse them and use them. And please feel free to email me any questions that you may have at Ann, A-N-N, Teed, T as in Tom, E-E-D, 7 at gmail.com. Ann Teed 7 at gmail.com. Take care. Go change the world.